You know, they say there's 8 wonders of the world. Well, the 9th wonder of the world has just entered the NWC. He's a man that knows no bounds. He's the man that's known as Mr. Intensity. He's the man known simply as Warrior.
Mr. Billy Anderson, one of the true warriors of all time.
We're no stranger, Warrior.
Can I have the forum, Mr. Billy Anderson?
It's all yours.
Please. All those warriors out there that have been asking for the last 2.5 years, what happened to the ultimate warrior? What happened to the warrior? What happened? Why'd he leave all those places that he was? And where's he going to be again? Wherever I may be, you can believe me, there's a message in the passion I have for answering challenges. And if there are those with familiar names, Honky Tonk Man, Jim the Anvil Neidhart, and those others that are here grooming themselves to become superstars in whatever federation, whatever group or organization they choose, I'm here to seek and raise them to the level they can come to, or I'm here to take the familiar ones back down to the dungeon where the warriors have been hanging and banging for the last 2.5 years. Forget me not! The warrior stands all alone. There are those that will imitate the warrior. There are those that will try and duplicate what I possess. But there is no one who feels the clawing of those warriors in his back, in the meat, in the spine, like I do.
Welcome to another action-packed hour of power. It's NWC SLAMMIN, brought to you by Ultrazone, the ultimate laser adventure, and by Comp 92.3 FM, the Rock of Las Vegas, and by Allstate Automarine and Electric for all of your automotive repairs. Welcome, fans, to this week's edition of NWC SLAMMIN. I'm your Dr. T.C. Martin, and alongside of me, the Guru, Big Al Lorenz. Well, fans, this week on NWC SLAMMIN, we are going to continue to show you action from the NWC Tag Team Tournament. Semi-final action, Big Al. We've got the Powers of Pain, the Warlord, the Barbarian, the Aerial Assault with Bobby Bradley and Rob Van Dam, the Power Twins, Dreaded Pain, and more.
Unpredictability reigns supreme in the NWC as always, Doc. You know, the Powers of Pain, round 2 is in against Aerial Assault. You fans that saw this match live, you know it's one for the record books.
That's right. We will continue to show you action as we get ready to crown tag team champions here in the NWC. And wait, fans, the weeks are counting down closer and closer to Saturday night, October the 7th. That's right. It's the 1-year anniversary extravaganza, the NWC at the Aladdin Theater, Saturday, October the 7th. And the main event, one for the record books. The Warrior battles Jim the Anvil Neidhart.
You know, Doc, I couldn't think of a better birthday present for the NWC than to have the Warrior and the Anvil squaring off right in that squared circle.
That is the main event, and there's a whole lot more in store around your door. More of what you're looking for right here on NWC SLAMMIN. Let's get right up to ringside for this week's action.
This is the Pro Wrestling Reflection Podcast with your host, the Professor Chalbello Veracruz.
What a run!
Mr. Wonderful, Tommy Wonder.
And I will take the powers of those that have no fear!
And the prodigal one, JB.
The queen, yeah. The cream of the crop.
Now it's time to go back in time in the time machine.
The American dream! Nasty round! Too sweet!
The living legend, Bruno Sammartino.
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. To be the man, you gotta beat the man. Woo! Look at this. He's I don't believe it.
Y'all ready for this?
What's going on there, Reflection Nights? What is going on there to the big Vito Ice, the Hameen Nights, all the ice all around the world? What's going on to the Dems, the Repubs? especially the Repubs right now, you know what? The professor's not going to be voting for Jim Jordan. The professor's going to be voting for his favorite Republican ever. No, not The Rock. I'm talking about Arnold Schwarzenegger for Speaker of the House. He's the man. I'll be back. The Terminator should be the Speaker of the House. No Jim Jordan. No Ted Cruz. No Matt Gaetz. No Liz Cheney. No Ronald Reagan. I want Arnold Schwarzenegger. Arnold Schwarzenegger should have been Speaker of the House when he left the governorship. But that's neither here nor there. But again, maybe TW has his own picks for his Speaker of the House. Neither here nor there. But it is a celebration. You know what? We had so much momentum from last week's PWR episode. The what ifs. I keep telling y'all, the what ifs are the most popular segments of, the PWR podcast here at the How Many Media Group at podbean.com. I get people sliding into the DMs. No, not that way, TW, but they're sliding into the DMs. Talking about what ifs, they're giving the professor, they're giving TW, tidbits, they're giving their own, they're begging us to do what ifs of their own scenarios. And of course, I take a list. TW takes a list. We will get to them. There's just too much right now. But also, I just love when people slide into the DMs. No, TW, not that way either. But they slide into the DMs because they want to react. They want to react to the show. They want to react to what we're talking about with the what ifs. So shout outs to all the reflectionites that slid into the DMs because TW was part of the slide. He doesn't want to admit it, but he was part of the slide. So I'm going to protect the innocent here. I'm going to protect all the names out there. But just thank you. We understand it, and that's what we want. We want a reaction. But neither here nor there. But welcome to the Pro Wrestling Reflection Podcast here at the How Many Media Group at podbean.com. And if you don't know me, you should know by now. It's been fucking 7 or 8 years. I don't know if you don't know my name, but I will still repeat myself. I am the oh-so studious one. I am the oh-so glamorous one. I am the oh-so scholarly one. But most importantly, I am the oh-so glorious one. The only objective man in this IWC, YWC, PWC punditry. The only objective man in this political spectrum. That's why I want Arnold Schwarzenegger as my Speaker of the House. But again, neither here nor there. You're a friend of mine, the Professor Chabelle Cruz. And I'm not here alone. No. Because when I go episodic, I gotta bring this man into the fold. I gotta bring this man his wrestling skills, his wrestling knowledge, his wrestling apropos. He is part of this family. He is part of this, conversation. I need this man for this conversation. He is your friend of mine, Mr. WWE at its own. The liberal conservative, the conservative liberal, the iron stomach one, Dr. Freaking Stein, and Michigan's sexiest bald guy, Tommy Wonder. How you doing, my friend?
I'm good, and you just made my head spin because the first time you guys did the episode, I was with Travis in North Dakota. It was August of 2016.
Damn,
which means 7 years and 3 months ago, which means I've lived a lot of places. I've only lived 2 places as longer than I've been doing this podcast with you, because I did one in 2014 before I started doing it all the time.
Right.
I've only had one job longer than that, and that was Art Van. Every other job has been 3-4 years. 7 years, that's crazy. That's nuts. And it took me a second to figure out what the DMs, but you were talking about our buddy who was going off the rails. Yeah, but that was awesome. That was cool. Because, hey, we say it all the time. There's 8, 9, 10 people that listen to us. There's probably more. There's just 8 who are interactive. And it feels good when we do this, that someone reaches out and says something about it. It gives credence to us doing it, other than you and I just talking to each other once a week for an hour or so.
Yeah,
which is my payday, by the way. I enjoy you and I hanging out once a week to do it.
Course.
So, and if we could get Ray to figure out we're not doing it on Tuesdays, that we do it on Mondays, and he can join us one time, that would be great too.
Well, the last time Ray tried to join us on a Monday, you was MIA because you had a concert. But again, I don't want to bring the receipts out. But again, we will never know if Big Ray is going to join us for a 3-man panel, at least for one episode. But then Ray will have to pick the episode. You know how Ray is. He wants to pick the episode. He wants to pick the show ideas. And, of course, the professor, he does everything. for the Reflectionites. He does everything for the PWR Podcast. But sometimes I gotta pick some shows for myself. But again, neither here nor there. But it is time to TW. We go episodic. It is time because now we're getting closer and closer to the elusive 200. I don't know what we're gonna do by 200 because I might have to buy streamers. I might have to buy balloons. You know, I might have to decorate, or I might have to invest in some CGI or something to make it look like we're celebrating something. Because on your side, you can decorate better because you already have the Hall of Wonders. But we're gonna have to pick a great episode for 200. But we are at number 176, TW. We're getting there closer, and I saw you was trying to blink those lights. You're trying to be slick there. Again, I see that. The professor has a keen eye for things. People think
They're way up here. I see one. That's it.
But I saw the blink.
Oh, by the way, you never asked me.
What's that?
It's recording the call, or maybe you did ask me. I don't remember, but I see it's recording.
Of
Only
course.
because I'm looking for these damn lights, which I don't see.
Yes, see, that's why you multitask a lot, and then you forget certain things. But
Yeah.
that's okay. But again, this is episode 176, so we're so close. We're getting to the elusive 200, so I'm very happy about that. We're inching closer and closer to that mountaintop of 200. But we got to talk about 176, Reflectionites. And I picked a doozy because this is, again, another organization that I never heard of. But that's because I lived on the East Coast. And this is another organization that TW did not have in his bookings because he probably would have went to Las Vegas, shoot some craps, fuck some ring rats, and get a payday, you know, working at the Aladdin Theater. But, you know, Reflectionites and TW, do you know that this organization was the first organization that Dave Meltzer shilled for? It wasn't AEW. This was the organization because this was the organization that he deemed, and also Pro Wrestling Illustrated, but I don't think Bill Apter was a part of Pro Wrestling Illustrated in the 90s. I forget. So correct me if I'm wrong, Ray. You know, I don't know how long Bill Apter was involved with PWI, but I know Meltzer.
Wasn't he always?
He left PWI. I don't know when.
I didn't know that. I didn't know he left.
Apter was still a part of the PWI during this time because in 94 with Starrcade 94, he was awarding Hulk Hogan Wrestler of the Year or Popular Wrestler on the Starrcade thing. So he was still part of it. But again, that's neither here nor there. But again, like I said, Dave Meltzer shielded for this particular company, TW, first and foremost as one of the best indie promotions in the mid-90s. And no, I'm not talking about ECW Reflectionites. I'm talking about the NWC. What does the NWC stand for, Reflectionites? The National Wrestling either Council or Conference. But it was the NWC, and it was founded, TW, if you did not know, by a former WWF ring announcer named T.C. Martin. So before anything, we'll talk about this episode that I found, this hidden gem from 1995. But TW, you know, and you are wrestling right now. And again, I must have to ask that same question because you heard about OVW that one time we talked about the OVW episodes. But again, it's not about a what if. But this is 1995, TW. You're in the wrestling scene, in the wrestling circa. And the cast of characters that was in the NWC were former WWF stalwarts like Tito Santana, like Virgil, like the Powers of Pain, like the Honky Tonk Man. And I'll leave out one name important because we'll leave that for later. And you know who I'm talking about. But you get where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
And in the NWC Reflectionites, there were up-and-comers. There were ECW people here, like Terry Funk, like Sabu, and an up-and-comer like Mr. Monday Night, Mr. Pay-Per-View, Rob Van Dam. So the question, the $1 million question, the $64,000 question, TW, is how the hell did you didn't even hear of the NWC? I'm not saying why didn't you, try to book yourself there. How the hell did you not hear about it? I know it was in the West Coast. I know it was Las Vegas, but you're in the wrestling circle. I'm sure the Honky Tonk Man passed by in the Midwest to tell you about this.
This is 95.
Mm-hmm.
It's absolutely littered with WWE guys, like fresh out of there. Like not like 10 years ago they last went on WWE. Like 94, 93, I'm certain a lot of these guys were there. I'm stunned they went there and not WCW, but I get it. There's been bridges burned. There's politics involved. Some guys don't want to work a full schedule. They just want to go get a payday. Because this is around the time when I learned from Road Warrior Hawk, you can make $1,000 a night doing indies and just do 2 a week, and you're good to go. And you don't even got to do them every week, and you're making $100,000. And they're paying for your trans, they're paying for your hotel. I'm assuming.
Wait. Hold on. $1,000 for maybe 2 weeks, and they pay for everything. Well, that's because if you have a name and a reputation, you can get that kind of payday.
$1,000
right?
a shot.
$1,000 a shot.
Hawk told me he charges $1,000 a pop, right? But if you book him for 2, he does 17, and if you do for 3, he does like 1,500. Ends up doing 500 a gig, right? Because this means he only has to go. He'll take 1,500 to do Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And or Thursday, Friday, Saturday, whatever the case may be. Then he doesn't have to get on an airplane 6 times. He's only got to get on it twice, because normally they're going to pay for your room. Someone's driving you around. They're more than likely feeding you. So you're just pocketing 1,500 rather than take $1,000 to wrestle Friday in Cleveland, $1,000 to wrestle Saturday in Philadelphia, and then Sunday you got to wrestle in Virginia. That's a lot of more wear and tear. I don't think he did 1,500 for 3, a triple shot.
No, but I get the hypothesis that he commands 1,000. He commands 1,500. I get you, but that's actually good.
That said, I don't know what NWC money they were working with to have all these different names. I'm not saying any names because obviously you're saving one who, by the way, would probably command way more money than the rest of those guys.
I know that figure very well, and we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah,
but Jim
those
Deanna
guys are probably coming in. They're probably coming in and taping like a month's worth of shit in 2 days.
Well, again, this organization had a lot of steam and a lot of notoriety for having the PWI and for having the Wrestling Observer to say that this is the best indie promotion in the mid-90s. Again, ECW didn't garner that. This was East Coast, so maybe we might have put a little bit more oomph into ECW because we were very tribalistic towards it. But I don't know if the magazines was that forthcoming to it. Maybe to a degree. Maybe it was the second best promotion. But NWC had I'll say this, TW, because for the NWC and Reflection X, I'll try to use this as the best analogy as I can, and TW will know where I'm going with this. TC Martin here, he was in the white coat, TW, if you didn't know who it was, but TC Martin was like the head play-by-play guy, but he was the owner of NWC. Again, like I said, former ring announcer for WWF, probably in the West Coast areas, the sports arena of LA and all that stuff. Neither here nor there. But TC Martin kind of reminded me of Herb Abrams without the coke, and kind of reminds me of Tony Khan right now for AEW. Without the coke. Well, we don't know. But again, without the coke. I'm trying to be nice here. But
we know.
But these are, he comes off a little eccentric, knowing that he's the owner of the NWC TW. He has investors. He's got a nice locale in Las Vegas. It's hot, 90 degrees, give or take 90 degrees. And you're booking at the Aladdin or the Silver Nugget, wherever the case may be. And like you said, TW, to get people like Jim the Anvil Neidhart, to get Virgil, to get the Powers of Pain, probably paying them $750, $1,000, $1,500 to go there. They're gonna go there for a couple of TV, and he got TV over there. He got sponsorships, and he has the Aladdin Theater that's probably doing like 1,500, 2,000 people. So he already had a lot of momentum going into it's kind of like, how Tony Khan's already had like a head start above everybody else. He was the 90s version of Tony Khan, having a head start like that, having a great locale, having wrestlers to come in. I don't know if the wrestlers took advantage of him because, again, he was kind of in the business to a degree, but he had a great locale and a great situation to have a hybrid of WWF stars of the 80s to hybrid with up-and-comers like Rob Van Dam of the 90s, and to have the ECW indie-rific people like Terry Funk and Sabu and all that stuff. So what say TW about what TC Martin brings to the fold for the NWC?
Well, the some of those guys you're talking about, they had Judge Dredd on this show. I think his name was George for some reason. I can't remember his name, but he's somebody that came around here before they started pushing him on ECW. What was he? Was Judge Dredd 911?
No, it looks like him. I was looking. I had to do a double take.
Okay, so you don't know Judge Dredd?
No, I don't know Judge Dredd.
Okay, I was confusing him with 911. Dredd did do ECW though, didn't he, for a minute?
I would say maybe he did a different character, but I don't remember the name Judge Dredd.
Because Judge Dredd was around here. He real nice guy, that big dude. He was a real nice guy, and this is around the time I met him. Would have been 94, 95, 96. Okay. Just real nice guy. And now that we're just talking about it, I think he probably did talk about going to do stuff because he was friends with Sabu, Judge Dredd. And I think
he might have stopped by an ECW, so it wouldn't have surprised me. I just don't think the name
Sabu
was
was
Judge
around
Dredd.
here all the time too, right? So Sabu and his uncle, the Sheik, they were here when I first started, and the Sheik passed away. But Judge Dredd was buddies with Sabu. They both were there. But a lot of these guys, when did ECW start?
The original Eastern Championship Wrestling was 90.
ECW when Rob Van Dam and Sabu and Taz were there.
Again, there's two parts.
Were they part of Eastern?
Eastern Championship Wrestling started in 92. Sabu started around ECW in 94. Rob Van Dam didn't come until 96.
That's what I'm saying. This is before ECW for RVD. And his partner fucking looks just like him. And I'm like, you know how you watch some YouTube clips and you can't see detail, right? Like, unless they got really up close, like the Warlord when they were wrestling. I couldn't get a good look at his partner. It was Bob Bradley. And I remember a job guy named Bob Bradley. And so I went and deep dived on him. He said he started in 82. And I'm like, there's no fucking way. Which means he started young. And a character I completely forgot about. And when I saw it, I'm like, that's not right. This character was played by this guy. I found out Bob Bradley was Battle Cat. It was a doink situation. They made it Brady Boone. I was a big Brady Boone fan, by the way. So when he became Battle Cat, I immediately knew that was Brady Boone, right? And then I think they exposed it in like one of the after mags or whatever that Battle Cat was Brady Boone. Well, after Brady Boone had his first televised match as Battle Cat, it was against Bob Bradley. And then he left the company, and then they made Bob Bradley Battle Cat. And so and then they scrapped that after a little bit. He had a little bit of a push. He beat job guys and then teamed with Coco.
And that's the partner of Rob Van Dam, Bob Bradley.
The partner of Rob Van Dam. But when you're looking at it, you're looking at it through 2023 eyes, and you're thinking RVD's the veteran here. RVD's only been wrestling 2 years by this point, maybe 3. That dude is the veteran. And it's crazy because I literally thought they called him Rob and Bob Van Dam. And I'm like, there's no fucking, I go, nobody's dumb enough to say Rob and Bob is 2 different people, right? So I just thought, wow, that's incredible. Because I remember Bob Bradley, the job guy, but he looked way different here. And I think I've told you before that you would see guys, as a funny side note, when this episode ended, the next thing that played on my YouTube was a WCW Saturday Night, and it was Johnny B. Bad versus against one of my buddies, Otis Apollo, who's part of the Can-Am, the Canadian Lightning tag team with Bobby Clancy, Irish Bobby Clancy, and Otis Apollo, but his real name was Phil, and he used to do jobs, and he was doing job with Johnny B. Bad. So I actually watched that a little bit too. But anyway, what I was saying is, Bob Bradley looks different here wrestling for the NWC than he did when he was doing jobs for WWE. And that's what a lot of indie guys would do. They'd have gear that they would wear to do jobs, and then they dress up like stars, if you will, in their local scene so that people don't know it's the same guy.
Well, considering the fact that Bob Bradley started in the 80s, he's not... so he's not... I'm not saying that he didn't job in the 90s for WWF. But
no, he did. That's what I'm saying. He still was doing jobs, and then he did this, and then he went back to doing jobs in '98.
But Bob Bradley and Rob Van Dam, they were a tag team here at the NWC called the Aerial Assault. But you didn't answer the question. Again, the question was TC Martin is doing what Tony Khan is doing what Herb Abrams is trying to do. Hybrid the stars of the past with some up and comers. So,
that's
and again, it was just, again, this is a 2-part question. He's got television. He's got a great locale. So this is a great, and I can understand why PWI and why Dave Meltzer called this the best indie promotion, because in comparison, and I'm being the most, you know me, TW, I'm the most objective man in the IWC, YWC, PWC punditry. In comparison to ECW, in comparison to South Philadelphia, born and raised, if I would, be in the wrestling journal, why are you stripping? Why the fuck you stripping?
I can't stand how I look in that shirt. It's got the bacon neck. Michael Jordan talks about. Hey, man, at least I went off camera.
No, you didn't. I'm seeing you strip. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? This is not OnlyFans. This is not the PWR OnlyFans. Oh, God. Okay, thank you. You put it on the iron sheet. But I'm trying to do a show reflection. Again, the audio
he's got
people,
a boner.
No, I don't. For the audio people, they won't understand why I kind of like, I did a fucking Ole Anderson Shockmaster thing. I'm looking like, what the hell is he doing? But again, if A-Track Brown, the slowest motherfucker out there, if he uploads the video, you will understand why the professor did what he did. But again, I'm trying to get my train of thought here. But again, I was going to say, as a wrestling journalist, if I'm in the wrestling business, TW, I would actually, pull for NWC because of the locale. I would pull for NWC because of the syndication deal that you have, the potential. I mean, if you got Las Vegas under your back pocket, if you got Phoenix, Arizona, you got Los Angeles, California, maybe you can, get some TV out of Portland, Oregon, Seattle, Washington, and all that stuff. Again, I'm thinking I'm expanding, but you can get the idea. He can control the West Coast, just like Paul Lee was trying to control the East Coast. But the West Coast, what does it offer? Again, hot weather and all that stuff. So I would want to go.
And hot chicks are a dime a dozen there.
Right. So I would want
hideous looking hippos in Philadelphia.
But I'm saying to you, if I'm a wrestler, I want to go to the hot locale. I want to go to the hot women, and probably potentially I want to make the NWC more, bankroll. I want it to succeed more than I want ECW. So what say you about that?
And assessment? If you're a journalist and you want to cover it, what would you rather do? Cover some shit in Vegas or cover shit at a bingo hall in Philadelphia? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not knocking it.
I'm not knocking it either.
The ECW is more traditional. Like, it's a hole in the wall that people are, being carnies and trying to get money. But Vegas is just like, dude, it's just I've been there twice. Every time I leave there, I want to go right back, even though I'm ready to leave when I'm done, because you spend a lot of money there. But and I don't even gamble. I just spend money. And so that would just be a nice place to go. And to be fair to the other indies, most indies can afford one, maybe two names, right? And if there's two, they're working each other, and the rest of the show is Professor versus Calavera, Billy Ray versus Bubba Ray or Big Ray, and a triple threat match. And you're not gonna have all these guys. You're not gonna have Sabu. That was what I was starting to answer your question. Is I was trying to get the logistics of it all. RVD really wasn't shit yet, was my point. And so it's good that he's using younger guys, but he's using older guys. And we're not really talking about results and stuff. I was stunned that Rob Van Dam and Bob Bradley beat the Powers of Pain. Like, that's how you do it. You bring in these names and then they win. And there was another match with that Johnny Psycho Pain, which was he one of the Pitbulls? No,
the tag team name was the Deadly Pain, Johnny Psycho and Judge Dredd against the Power Twins.
Right, but his name was Johnny Psycho Pain, or Johnny Pain Psycho, some shit. I actually liked him. He was a little green, probably needed some revision. But when I was looking at the roster on Wikipedia, it said he was the Pitbull. So I was asking you, was he one of the Pitbulls? Yeah, so it's a different guy. Yeah. So, but that guy and Dredd went over on the fucking Native Americans. I didn't see them. They just said that's who they won. So when they came out and beat up on those twin brothers, and I'm like, I've never heard of either one of these fucking guys. I said, and I told Denise was watching with me, I said, if these two fucking guys beat these twins, then that will explain to me why I've never heard of this promotion before, right? And they did it. The twins won. I thought it was weird that Dredd got pinned, and I think it was a small package. And this is again, I'm not knocking AEW, and I get it to a point where you're trying to make it a blurred line between good guys and bad guys. The WWE's tried to do that for years and failed. But the AEW in this particular episode of this promotion, I don't know if they did it often, you cannot have heels versus heels and expect people to give a damn. Speaking of the After magazines, I've referenced this on this show before, referenced it to Travis and Tex. After did a story on a match in either Madison Square Garden, the Boston Garden, or the Philadelphia Spectrum, one of those house show circuit matches. It was Sheik and Volkov versus Valentine and Beefcake. And it said, the headline was, "The night the fans booed everyone." And it's like, when you're a wrestling fan and you're watching, you want someone to cheer for, right? But when the two big bald fat brothers come out, they're not bald, they're balding, and they're telling everybody suck it. They're like, boo. Then the next two guys that come out are the two guys that just did bad guy promos to tell the fans to suck it, that Johnny Payne guy. Why would anyone care? And then Dredd turns on Johnny because he loses, which that was the right move. The twins should have won. They actually look like a tag team. Then Johnny's the bad guy. He gets turned on, and he's still out there telling fans they suck. It's just so weird to me how backwards that particular seg was. But I like that the tag team unknown, never heard of, twin brothers who look like a tag team went over on Dredd and Payne, who looked like a hodgepodge team. And I like that the Aerial Assault, the young guys, went over on Powers.
But there's a reason for that. Again, if NWC is going to be this up-and-coming promotion, again, I would say if TC Martin kept his head on a swivel, he understood what he wanted to do. He knew that the people like Aerial Assault, like Rob Van Dam and Bob Bradley, will be there longer than the Powers of Pain.
And affordable.
He knew, and that's a good word, affordable. He knew that the Power Twins would probably be there longer. He only needed Virgil. He only needed Jim the Anvil Neidhart. He only needed the Powers of Pain for a reason to get these young guys over. And again, this is a formula that has been going on for, decades, TW, but some people just don't understand this. Sometimes it even happens in WWE. Sometimes it happens in AEW. A 50-year-old goes over on a 24-year-old.
Sometimes,
yeah. Sometimes. I'm just saying. Sometimes I'm not going to name names. Edge defeated Luchasaurus, but again,
who?
Oh, you mean Copeland? Yeah, Mr. Coper.
And by the way, I know it's all up in the all over our pages and all over that. Ricky fucking Starks called him Adam Cole when he came to the ring. I was like, is no one going to catch that? He says, I have no respect for you, Adam Cole. I have no respect for you, Daniel Bryan, Bryan Danielson. He goes, but I have some respect for you, Christian Cage. I told Travis and our buddy Matt in North Dakota, I said, say what you will about Vince McMahon and his control, but there wouldn't be fucking three Adams running around in the WWE, and certainly not an Adam Cole and an Adam Copeland who sound exactly the fucking same, other than there's an extra syllable. And Ricky Starks come out and called him Adam Cole.
And that's why Vince will start naming people by their last names as their only names. Page, Cole, and Copeland. But again, but I'm just saying, TC Martin, if he kept his head on a swivel, Reflectionites, he had a good, formula to get, use the guys that had names to get the new stars over.
And you got to put them over some, because otherwise they look like job guys.
But the reality is, I'm not paying to see Aerial Assault. I'm not paying to see Rob Van Dam and Bob Bradley yet. I'm paying to see the Powers of Pain. I'm paying to see Virgil. I'm paying to see Jim the Anvil Neidhart. But
I'm paying to see Virgil, but yeah.
No, but you got names.
You're paying for the names.
You're paying for the names with the reputations and why they're, why you want to. Again, it's the silver nugget. You want to get 1,000 people there for a reason.
Golden
and again,
nugget.
Well, no, actually, in my notes, it says Silver Nugget. So there were certain hotels in the Las Vegas.
That was a jobber hotel. That was off the strip. That's what that was.
It probably was off the strip. I wasn't in the Las Vegas until after some of the constructions in the 2000s, after like 2005 myself. So again, neither here nor there. But you get where I'm going with this. You pay for the names with the street cred, and then you build, and then hopefully with each show passes by, Aerial will gain the street cred. So this way you will in the future pay to see Aerial Assault. So with that being said, TW, we must talk about this episode from 1995, September of 1995. And TW, somebody came back from the dead. Somebody after 3 years makes an appearance on syndicated television. No, it's not the Renegade Reflection Knights. It was actually the Ultimate Warrior. No, and he couldn't call himself the Ultimate Warrior because of trademark infringements, TW, because Vince McMahon sued the Ultimate Warrior, Jim Hellwig, in court in Connecticut for a couple of years because of the copyright and name rights to the Ultimate Warrior. So the Warrior himself, Jim Hellwig, spun it around and just hyphenated his name to just Warrior. Now, in 1995, Reflection Ice and TW, to give you the logistics. Now, you talked about Road Warrior Hawk commanding a lot of money, like the $1,000 and $1,500. Do you know what Warrior was getting paid, at least for one spot?
It's got to be 10 grand.
You got it. He asked for it and received $10,000. And this is probably where TC Martin lost his train of thought. He lost his focus because he got greedy. This is like, and Reflection Eyes, if I'm going to use Warrior, I'm going to use an analogy that happened just recently. Tony Khan was so obsessed in his fandom to get CM Punk by any means necessary. He lost, for Tony Khan, he sacrificed locker room morale. For TC Martin to do by any means necessary, TW, to get the Ultimate Warrior on NWC TV, he sacrificed his pocketbooks. Why would he get $10,000 and Jim the Animal Neidhart gets $1,000? I understand why, because Ultimate Warrior put asses in seats. But you're an up and coming indie promotion, TW. You don't have resources like Tony Khan.
Yeah,
you don't have
that money back.
You're not making that money back. You need to sell out. You need to sell out the golden nugget, not the silver nugget, week in and week out. So TW, now we'll talk about the Ultimate Warrior. And again, he commanded $10,000. But I understand TC Martin being, the fan of wrestling and not a businessman. It was a coup to do something that WCW couldn't do. It was a coup to do something that Vince McMahon couldn't do. Get him on American wrestling television. So talk about anything about the Ultimate Warrior being on NWC TV. It should have been a coup. Yes, it should have. But we know that Ultimate Warrior's erratic behavior and expensive, demands is one of the downfalls of NWC. So what say you about even seeing the Ultimate Warrior here? Because he had a commercial too in this episode.
So he probably got the 10 grand, and then he also got multiple spots for promoting his school, the Warrior Academy, which, by the way, I looked into, and that was so expensive. I was like, not doing it. Plus, it was in Arizona, and it might have started after I already started school. But I remember that those commercials, because I want to say when he came back to WWE, there was commercials for that school, or at least right around the time when he came back that last time.
I don't recall Warrior University, but I recall the Warrior comic book as one of his kind of like deals with Vince McMahon in '96. But I get what you're going with.
Right, but I'm saying somehow I saw these Warrior Academy commercials, but I don't know if he fucking ran spots on other shit I was watching. I don't know.
Not on Raw, not that I remember. But this was part of his deals. This was part of the $10,000.
And it was 3 years in exile where he did nothing, and then. After that is when he went back to WWE. Then he did all that fucking internet stuff that pissed everybody off, and then he ended up in WCW. But
it should have
been. To me, if you're gonna put 10 grand on this guy, I don't know how the fuck Jim Neidhart is his opponent. Like I don't get it. I know he worked Honky Tonk Man too, and that
was the only 2 matches he had, and then he left.
Yeah, but I don't how Neidhart. I don't get how Neidhart, like, if whatever you paid Neidhart, you couldn't have paid Sergeant Slaughter. You couldn't have paid, you know what I mean? Somebody to come in with some actual history, like Warrior versus Honky Tonk is history. Bring in Rick Rude, bring in, someone that he had history with, but just Neidhart. And I don't know if you want to seg to this. I can't believe we didn't lead to the shit that we watched Neidhart do.
No, we'll talk. No, save that. But again, let's talk about the Ultimate Warrior. Again, my question is, what should have been a coup for TC Martin? What should have been a coup for NWC? This probably made the PWI as maybe not a front page story, but
it's the CM Punk signing with AEW.
It's in comparison to, I don't know about bigger, but it's in comparison to the CM Punk thing because people wanted to know what happened to the Ultimate Warrior. Right. Nobody knew. People said he thought
that's why I say it's bigger. It's the Warrior, and I don't care. God bless you, neckbeards. Think CM Punk is one of the all-time greats. He's not at the Ultimate Warrior's level. He will never be at the Ultimate Warrior's level. The Warrior, I think part of his mystique is like Kiss. He really didn't do much, just like The Undertaker, out of character. He didn't do stuff outside of wrestling, and his runs were short. So he just was so impactful, and for that place to get him, and everyone's waiting for him to go back to WWE or go to WCW. This wasn't even an option on people's bingo cards of where he's going to end up, you know? So for him to go there, for this company to be starting up, having these other names, and then also you're telling me they got the Warrior too in Vegas when we got people just begging for a reason to go there in the first place, and now you're telling me I can go there and see the Ultimate Warrior, who I haven't seen in 3 fucking years? This is bigger than CM Punk, and it's a smaller promotion, so you know it ain't gonna last long because this place probably ain't gonna last long, or at least you don't know. Whereas AEW wasn't going anywhere with or without Punk. And they got him. It was, but again, it was almost too late.
The biggest difference again with signing CM Punk and signing the Ultimate Warrior is resources. Right. TC Martin does not have the resources that the Khans have to afford to make a mistake. TC Martin couldn't afford to make a mistake. This was a business venture that TC Martin was going to hope for, that NWC was going to get to the next level and get to the level, maybe let's say the AWA, to be the third promotion. Like ECW was fighting for year after year after year, TW, to be nationally recognized, and it took them a long time. And that caused financial strain on Paul E. Dangerously, and he had to fold. TC Martin was already was a year in to get the Ultimate Warrior, but he should have went at the craps table. He should have been at the blackjack table, doubling his money, so this way he could pay his boys, pay the Ultimate Warrior, and then pay for bigger venues, because again, you got to get a return on your investment. And again, the Ultimate Warrior, with his erratic behavior, his reputation, to stronghold for money and all this stuff. And again, the deal Reflection Nights was $10,000 and spots. I don't know if they paid him to put his spots on TV. So again, the Ultimate Warrior was given everything, just like Tony Khan gave CM Punk everything on the silver platter, and you still fucked it up. One more thing, TW, about the Ultimate Warrior, and again, you could talk about either way. Like, I understand you was talking about why Jim the Animal Neidhart, why Honky Tonk Man. Let's just put it this way: we're gonna kind of put what are you doing? You reading something?
I'm looking to see how long that company was around.
It lasted till '98. Let me ask you this question, TW. In this essence, we're gonna kind of put a little hybrid what if spin on this. With the roster that you see in the NWC, to have someone like the Warrior there, I mean, in your humble opinion, what is the Ultimate Warrior then? Is he your NWC Hulk Hogan? Is he your Stallworth? Is he the guy that could be the reason why you expand to the East Coast, expand to the Midwest, expand to Florida?
He's your pillar, is what he is.
He's your pillar. Okay, so what?
And for that money, I mean, why give it to him if you're bringing him in for one spot? Because you're not going to make $10,000 in ticket sales for the Warrior being there one time.
Mm-hmm. What would you do with the Warrior with the roster that you have? How can you help build a roster, but then you know that the Warrior commands not only the money, but maybe the power or the control of the roster, you could say?
Warrior always struck me as the kind of guy just showed up, tell me what you want me to do, I'll do it. Because the way he lost to Slaughter, the way he did all this stuff, he just showed up and did it. I think, me personally, I wouldn't put the belt on him right away. I would wait to see how it panned out. Mm-hmm. If it was worth it, if I could keep paying him. Because the last thing you want to do is put the belt on him and then find out I can't afford another 10 grand to bring him back in to lose it, right?
Okay.
So the immediate thought I have is you team him with first of all, the Powers Pain should have been good guys, not bad guys. You already got those fat twins that could be your bad guys. You got Pain and Dread to be bad guys. Powers Pain should have been your good guys. They've always been the fucking poor man's Road Warriors, so make them that. And I think you team Warrior with the Powers of Pain against whatever you establish as your Heenan family, right? Like you have a heel manager who has all these guys, and maybe one of those guys is the champion, and Warrior and Powers of Pain are chasing those guys for their belt.
Guess who became a heel manager in NWC?
Slick.
No, I'll give you. No, you actually saw him on the TV. He's the lead play-by-play announcer.
Oh, that guy that owned it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He Bischoff before Bischoff.
Yeah, he did that. That's what I'm just saying. That he didn't see the eyes on the prize, but I just wanted to answer your question. But it's a good scenario. It's just like when you see the Ultimate Warrior, and like you said, it's the biggest coup of the 90s to get him. What are you going to do with that? It's a lot. It's a lot right there, because not only can he carry it, he has to carry the organization, but you want the organization to expand. You want it to expand all across the United States to be not a threat, but competition to WCW. A competition.
You just want to be a viable place.
A viable alternative to both, if you can't make it in WWE or
the problem with it is that was like a very, very, very valley for wrestling. It's right before the blow up, which the blow up is what, 96, 97 is when wrestling boomed?
Again, it depends on who you ask. 98 was the boom with the Monday Night Wars.
These guys just missed it.
Mm-hmm.
When did Hall and Nash come out? 97.
96.
It was right, 96. Right?
But that wasn't the boom. The boom, what people talk about is money. The boom is 98. I understand what you're talking about with the wrestling, like let's say the talk. The water cooler talk was
when
96.
did the 83 weeks begin?
96.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't making money at first?
No, Bischoff said that his biggest profit of the year of WCW was 98.
Okay, so that's peak.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because
he was building his money, but I get what I'm just saying. His biggest profit was 98. So I'm just answering your question.
These guys, then they fell off right in the middle of that. So then I guess it wouldn't have mattered when they started because they couldn't get. But at that point, it was one or the other. You were watching WCW, WWF, and you weren't looking for other shit. I mean, that basically killed ECW too, to the point where they're both trying to bring ECW guys in to one up the other guy until eventually ECW fell. And that was the problem. They got Warrior too. The first WWE got him, and then WCW got him for that stupid Halloween Havoc, which that was 99, right?
98.
It was 98 for Warrior Hogan?
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't happen. That didn't really happen. So I'm going to tell myself 99. That way people can look it up. And they didn't have each other in 99.
Oh, okay, men in black. But anyway, let's talk about what's going on in this episode here, because TW wanted to talk about a certain segment that opened the show. So I want to talk about it because it was a storyline that it opened with everybody, with the black Johnny Gargano, the black Daniel Bryan, because everybody had sympathy for this man. Everybody's favorite underdog, Virgil. He's going one-on-one with Thug. And I say Thug because women are wrestling. I said Thug. But this was a different Thug. This was a male Thug. But what a way to open the show, Reflectionites, because Virgil comes out first. He had his music, Pomp and Circumstance. People, he's kissing babies and all that stuff. But Virgil, if you notice, TW, Virgil was a little bit pissed off at somebody. I don't know if somebody grabbed his ass or something, but he looked at somebody from the back like he was pissed at something. But again, neither here nor there. I just noticed certain things. But when Thug
you know how you noticed it? Because you were looking at his ass. But go ahead.
I wasn't. But again, neither here nor there. But it wasn't about Virgil, and it wasn't about somebody grabbing his ass. It was about the appearance of Thug. And TW, oh God. Like you say, what wouldn't play in 2020 Thresh?
I looked at Denise. I go, I cannot believe this guy. There was two of them.
Yeah.
I can't believe these guys coming out in straight up Ku Klux Klan hats to wrestle a black guy in 1995. And then when they go do what they do, I go, no, they're not gonna. They're gonna. And they fucking hung him with a sheet. And I looked at her, I go, I cannot believe I'm watching this in 1995. She goes, that's 1995? I go, yeah. I go, you do that shit in the South in 85. If it's the wrong neighborhood, you're not leaving that building. I said, if it's the right neighborhood, they're going to help you, right? Depending on where you're at. I said, but 95? I'm like, and me and Professor always say, things you can't do in 2023. And she said, or 93 or 83 or 73. She said shouldn't do. And I'm like, I sat there dumbfounded. I'm like, I go, A, now I see why I never heard of this place. And B, I can't believe I've never heard of this place for that alone. And my question to you is, in the last few years, they've tried to make the word thug a racial thing. Like if someone's referring to people as thugs, that it's racist, when I've seen many people of many races get called thugs because it's an actual thing where people think they're living the thug life, if you will. I ask you, were they trying to make us think they weren't Ku Klux Klan members by using a term like thug to make it sound like they were something else? And I kept telling her, because you can't tell with the screen, I just go, they better be black under that hood. They better be black. I go, if they're not, she goes, they don't look black to me. And I'm like, I can't fucking tell because this looks like it was recorded in 1982. I said, and then
well, you kind of answered your own question, because with T.C. Martin and then Buffalo Bill as the color analyst, they were kind of like using hidden words. They weren't acknowledging Ku Klux Klan. They weren't acknowledging racism. They acknowledged bed sheets. They acknowledged it more as a ghost, but they never they never acknowledged it as the Ku Klux Klan, and they never acknowledged it like this was 1925. This was 1935 circa Mississippi. And like you said, TW, and a hanging happened. But this was storyline driven that Thug acquired the services of Jim the Anvil Neidhart. He was under the bed sheets. And again, this was a Meltzer 5-star classic. Again, because there was storyline, there was purpose.
He don't like storyline. He likes flippity floppity, one match after the other, no stories, no interviews.
There was a hanging. That's 5 stars right there. But again, neither here nor there. But
I had to tell Denise, I said, I go, hanging a wrestler is nothing new. They've done it by belts, they've done it by bull ropes, they've done it by sheets. I go, but having white dudes hang a black dude, I go, come on. I'm like, who? And then she didn't know Virgil was black because of the screen, you can't really deal with it. We all know who Virgil is, so we know. It's just a default. She goes, that's a black guy going along with that? I go, yeah. I go, that's Virgil. What's he gonna do? But I just was like, I just could not believe it, dude. Like literally, like
let me ask you.
People are upset this week because of a fucking roll of coins by Juice Robinson, which to me, I didn't take as anti-Semitism. I took it as, shockingly for AEW, him referencing that he's gonna hit you with coins because he's afraid of coins because he was picked on and people threw coins at him, right? I didn't look at it as he was calling him a Jew. I think it was like haunting him with his past. Like, I'm going to throw quarters at you like the kids did it as a young guy. But then Taz had to make the comment.
Remember, even MJF said he was a Jewish boy getting bullied by people hitting him with coins. So that's where they went with this.
I get the reference. But what I'm saying, what Juice did specifically was like, it was a prop. Like, hey, I'm going to throw these at you. Not because he's a Jew, he's saying it like, I'm going to do this because you don't like it, kind of thing. Like, you reference it. And think about it. Not the first time someone had a roll of coins on wrestling either. But until Taz says what he says, and then someone else says what he says, I'm like, I wouldn't even have thought that. My default would have not been to go to, he's calling him a Jewish guy because you want this money. I took it as, people threw quarters at you, so I'm going to throw quarters at you because, and by the way, everything they do to that guy is bullying. They got his belt, they got his ring, they got everything from him. He gets no recourse, no comeuppance. But I did not take showing the roll of coins. I took it as he's threatening him, like, I'm going to hit you with these coins or whatever, taunt you because you don't like the coins. But this
we learned something. What TW? We learned something.
What?
Juice Robinson is part of the Hamas tribe, so that's what it is. That's why it's even more work.
Switchblade looks like he could be too.
Yeah, so let's go back to 1995 TW, and let me ask you this in the wrestler perspective, because to be a fly on the wall in the locker room between T.C. Martin, Jim the Anvil Neidhart, Doug, and Virgil, to even have this powwow backstage, TW, I mean, what say you? Again, the locker room is not big. You know, everybody dresses in the same place, especially in this kind of venue. So, TW, you probably could hear T.C. Martin talking to Virgil and talking to Jim the Anvil Neidhart, not only getting away with this on Las Vegas television or West Coast television per se, but just Virgil agreeing to this. And I don't want to go into the progressive, wokeism, TW, but it feels like Virgil had no choice but to accept this. I don't know. I can't say, and I'm not going to speak for Virgil. I don't know Virgil personally. You probably dealt with him a little bit here and there. Maybe you never crossed paths.
Never
okay.
crossed paths
So
with Virgil.
I'm going to look at it from I don't want to say the wokeism part, but again, a black man, and this is a white guy. I
want to know whose idea it was.
That's the thing. I'm going to go with it this way: a black man has no choice but to accept this, because he's got to get paid. So what's ATW? I mean, again, you're the fly on the wall as a wrestler in the locker room, hearing ideas being passed back and forth.
85 yes, 95 no. He didn't have to accept that shit. He probably already got paid before he got there. He could have been like, fuck you. And it seemed like the kind of place that been like, all right, man, you're not cool with that. We'll do something else. I know this. If I'd have been in that locker room, because I've done it, not necessarily something that offensive, but I've been in a locker room, looked up and saw some dude wearing it, and I'd literally go, you're going to wear that out there? And I'd talk him out of it, right? The second I'd have saw sheets with holes cut in the eyes and knew they were working Virgil, I'd have been like, dude, come on. Are you going for any fucking publicity is good publicity? Because this ain't it. And I would have said that in 1995. I don't give a shit if I was the greenest guy in that room. I would have looked up and went, you're not really doing that. And I've got examples. I told you when we were doing the thing with the Canadian Imperial Alliance, we're doing an outdoor show in Flint, Michigan, where they wanted us to burn the American flag. And I said, absolutely not. I'm like, there's motherfuckers driving with a shotgun in the back of their truck right now that will see us do that, who will pull that shotgun down and shoot us from a mile away for burning the American flag. I'm not doing it. And as I'm watching this, I looked at Denise when she said, he agreed to that? I go, yep. I had a guy offer me right after September 11th, within months of that, maybe a year of that, like that next summer, asked me, hey, man, you sure you don't want to change gimmicks? Because I was the Mexican guy, right? And I'm like, what do you mean? There's this little town in Michigan over here. It's where Coldwater is, where Dan Severn's from, Hillsdale. It's fucking, they're probably still Klan members there today, right? So this guy wanted me to wear a turban, be Arabic, and go on an anti-American thing right after September 11th. I looked right at him. I go, absolutely not. And that was the end of that conversation, and I walked away because I would have went missing in that town. And that's like, you have to say no to things. If you don't say no to things, then you're just as guilty as the guy who suggested it. I want to know why Neidhart said yes to it. I want to know. Now, granted, 95, people weren't as afraid to do shit as they are in 2023 or no better. So maybe Neidhart's like, oh, so we're going to I'm going to unveil it and wrap him with a sheet and throw him over the top. Okay. Like, he might just look at it like, all right, and didn't think about how that shit was going to look symbolically, right? Because like I said to her,
if the sheet didn't look Klans-like with the point, if it looked ghostly.
Like, if you don't mean it to look like that way, you can at least get a black pillowcase. Don't or a blue or a red one. Don't because I understand that maybe these dumbasses thought they were executioner looking guys.
Yeah.
First of all, I think whoever the other guy was under the mask,
that has to be Thug. That's Thug.
Absolutely. This dude was no chance he was letting that thing come off his head. He didn't want anybody to know who he was under there. And if you saw him, he kept fixing it. And I thought they were still going to wrestle. And I'm like, is this guy wrestling with that thing in his head? I wrestled with a mask on that had fabric over the eye holes, right?
It makes you want to say, I'd rather wrestle with a stormtrooper mask instead of the Ku Klux Klan mask. But go ahead, TW. I'm sorry.
But I'm saying this guy didn't want anyone to know who he was under that fucking hood at all. Because he absolutely, of the three, was very aware of how this shit was going to look. And that's why I think, do they think calling him Thug means he's all world. What was the point of wearing a sheet like that and then calling yourself thug like you're from the streets in a gang or something versus being a Klansman? The whole thing just blew me away. And the fact that you're telling me this happened in September of 95 and they made it so at 98, obviously they didn't go back to this well, because it would, if they're coming at people now for rolls of coins, can you imagine what people would have done to that?
Well, the way you're saying this, to me, I think TC Martin just did one thing. He paid them a little bit extra to agree to do this. So if Virgil's a businessman, so I'm looking at it from one standpoint, but you kind of like sway me to think this is wrestling, this is a business. I would say I'm trying to be on the side of Virgil, like a black man. He's got no political stroke. He's got to take it. He's probably going to be gifted more money, so he's like, all right, fuck it, I'm gonna. If you already paid me $1,000, you're gonna pay me $1,000 more, $2,000 to get hung with a bed sheet. Sign me up, I'll do it. So
but here's also what he's thinking. I'll tell you who should have been adamant about not doing it is Neidhart, because Virgil's gonna look like a victim. He's not gonna look like the guy doing the shit to the common person. Obviously, you got us who's saying, "The fuck, man? Why would you agree to do that?" But like you said, money's money, right? Think of all the shit he did with DiBiase. That's probably where this was born from, was how DiBiase basically treated him like he was a slave. So they're probably just piling on, like this poor guy just gets treated shitty to build some kind of sympathy for him. The crowd was in on him. They were like, Virgil. But I don't understand how anyone sat in a room and no one went and said, guys, this is probably not a good idea. Yeah. I've done it. I'll do it again. I will never, ever be the guy who doesn't say, guys, this is not a good look.
Like you said, if it was like the executioner mask, like those sadomasochistic shits,
red or purple,
whatever, I think it would have passed in small town USA, because you're not thinking like that. You're just thinking maybe S&M and shit like that. But Virgil, it had to be this. Symbolically, you're right, because the crowd was chanting Virgil. They wanted him to come out and rally, not heels go over strong, but the hero goes over strong here. But again, it was 2-on-1. Thug did not want to unmask himself unless that wasn't the real Thug. But again, neither here nor there. I'm not trying to keep up with the NWC
and that was something they said. They're like, we thought that was Thug under that mask or hood or whatever he said. So I'm assuming Thug had been seen before without that hood on.
I assume so too. So with that being said, Reflection Nights, we're going to go into the next segment. Kind of like we're going to combine the two, TW, because the point of this episode was the semifinals to crown the inaugural NWC Tag Team Champions. So it was the final four here, Reflection Nights. One half of the bracket was the Power Twins against Dreaded Pain. And on the other side, you had the Powers of Pain versus Aerial Assault with Rob Van Dam and Bob Bradley. So TW, with that being said, we got some structure for this show. We got some importance because you're trying to crown inaugural tag team champions. And for the final four here, again, we already know I'll say the logistics. You already said Power Twins won on their side, Aerial Assault won it on the other side. But let's just talk about a little bit of both matches. We'll try to hybrid it here as best as we can, because it's daunting on the professor, because again, just like AEW in its inception, TW, bragged about his tag team division, and years later, again, it's subjective right now, but the tag team division is nothing without FTR, in my humble opinion. They're the anchors, and everybody else is trying to catch up to them. I like Ricky Starks and Big Bill, but FTR should be the anchors. They can make storylines and all that stuff. They're the ones. There's the reason. You got the final four here, TW. We don't know, how long we're going to see the Powers of Pain. We don't know how long we're going to see the Power Twins, maybe even Dreaded Pain. But we know one thing. TC Martin sees something in Bob Bradley and Rob Van Dam. TC Martin, like you said, TW, he can afford the Aerial Assault. But again, you have four tag teams, TW. So what say you about the tag team division in NWC? Because again, you need the cloud of the Powers of Pain. But of course, you're trying to do something by elevating up-and-comers. So what say you, TW, about this tag
Well,
team
what
tournament.
confused me was they're calling this the semifinals, which means there had to be quarterfinals, which is the
Mhm.
original opening round. But the
Right.
Powers Pain did one of the absolute worst interviews of all time to set up this match, and they said their first opponents were Aerial Assault. So how are they in the semifinals against Aerial Assault if they haven't had any other opponents? And Pain and Dread
remember
beat the Native Americans.
suspension of disbelief. What do we say in wrestling, right? They fought all over the world. The NWC tag team tournament was going on everywhere in the world. The Powers of Pain, fought in London, fought in Africa to get to Las Vegas to get to the semifinals.
They won the South African bracket.
There you go. See, use your imagination. That's the way I did it. So what say you, TW?
I think Powers of Pain are solid. I think the Fat Twins, whatever they call themselves,
The Power Twins.
Power Twins, which is again, Vince McMahon wouldn't have Powers of Pain and Power Twins. They would have been called something else. The only team there that didn't look good was Dread and Pain, and they didn't last anyway.
Because, like you said, Dread and Pain was really was a hosh posh put together. Because reflection. I want to focus on the other guy that you talked about, Johnny Psycho. He's already character based. They already gave him a storyline. He got released from a California medical facility, or
1 year ago.
1 year ago from a sanitarium, quote unquote. It's Arkham. We're going to call it Arkham for some strange reason. Arkham Asylum. So they released him. That just shows you California's liberal policies. You just go in.
Yeah.
Liberal policies. You go in. It's the revolving door. You come out, and then you come out worse. But anyway, neither here nor there. But Johnny Psycho had presence. He had that character and all that stuff. So, the funny thing, TW, if you looked at it in Reflection Nights, Johnny Psycho is a doppelganger. Because if you looked at him very closely, TW, I know that probably the copy of the YouTube was bad, but you'll know where I'm going with this. And for the 12 that ride strong, who watches Impact Wrestling, maybe there's one of you that watches Impact Wrestling. But Johnny Psycho, TW, you watch Impact Wrestling at least once or twice, right?
Sometimes.
Okay. He looks like Eddie Edwards without the beard.
I was thinking he looked like Brian Cage.
No, he don't. He looks like Eddie Edwards. It looked like Eddie Edwards never aged. He's the Dick Clark of wrestling. If it's Johnny Psycho, he hybrid into Eddie Edwards. But I get where you're going with Brian Cage.
If Eddie Edwards worked out.
Well, they look like they have the same build, but he was shorter. I don't know. I'm just saying about myself. But there was more of a character for Johnny Psycho. And then if you want to talk about the aerial assault, TW, but Rob Van Dam and Bob Bradley were put together for one purpose: to be the Fantastics, to be the Rock and Roll Express, to be the Lightning Express. They were going to be the team that takes the most bumps, the most punishment, to feel the most sympathy, but yet you're going to cheer for them, and they're going to come out with the win by any means necessary. They're going to come, against all odds. Aerial Assault will be that kind of tag team. What say you, TW, about all that? And
they did such a good job dressing alike and looking alike. They had the same build. Bob Bradley had the same hairdo as RVD.
Power Twins looked alike. Powers of Pain looked alike.
The fucking twins. Of course it did. I'm telling you, I was so blown away that there was two RVDs. I'm like, this motherfucker's a twin? What happened to the other one? And then that's when I went down the wormhole of figuring out who Bob Bradley was, thinking, I know that name. Like, it's just insane to me. But they did good, and it was not a horrible match. I mean, Powers of Pain are limited. Their promo so bad, man. And I had issues with two things.
What's that?
Warrior showing himself without his paint.
He did have paint.
At least he wore sunglasses. No, that was for the promo. He had the little tiny paint and the sunglasses. But when he was in this gym working out, he didn't have no paint on. And then the Powers of Pain did their promo with their bandanas on and their gear on. At least put on sunglasses. That's what Sting and Warrior would do in interviews when they didn't have paint done yet. But they didn't even do that. And then they come out with paint on, and you're just kind of like, I've already seen you without it. I don't know if I need it.
Well, for the Warrior, I can answer that question. Remember, there was litigation against the Warrior. So everything was copyrighted. Everything Vince McMahon was trying to bleed him dry of his finances, because they even said that the symbol was WWE trademarked. He couldn't do that if you didn't know that. That's part of the litigation. The name Ultimate Warrior belonged to Vince. The stylistics of his face paint belonged to Vince. That's what he said. And that's why, again, like that, everything belonged to Vince and WWE trademarks. He couldn't do that. He wasn't allowed to do that. That's why the Warrior was trying to do other things, like try to like do a smaller version of it on the sides and not have.
He had that in WWE once, the little tiny one.
No, but he had to come back to WWE to do everything and not, to settle out of court, so to speak. And again, in WCW, we don't have to go into 98 because he kind of like, again, they settle out of court so he can do a little bit more Ultimate Warrior-esque things. But with that being said, TW, there's nothing really left because, again, I'll say this. With the semifinals of the tag team tournament here, TW, Aerial Assault, the way they won, I did not agree with it. I thought they should have won the way the Power Twins won their match. I don't mind a roll-up victory by Aerial Assault. I mind it by the Power Twins because the Power Twins were bigger. Right. Aerial Assault doing a roll-up on the Powers of Pain would have been bigger, and I think the crowd would have went crazier. I think they would have went bananas. But TW, I think it was kind of like, it was an easy out to do the throw the referee over the top rope and just hurt the referee and get a disqualification. Again, you're trying to make me, as the consumer, as the fan, believe that the NWC tag team titles mean something. Why would the Powers of Pain win the South Africa bracket and then come all the way to Las Vegas to throw the referee out if you don't think that the tag team titles mean shit?
I would say, because they thought they were going to lose anyway. So rather than lose by pinfall and lose credibility, they throw the referee out of desperation. It's like the Ric Flair rule. I might have lost by DQ, but I still got to keep this belt.
But I don't agree with that. I don't
either.
What are you saving them for?
What are you saving them for? Half those guys win with a roll up and call it a day.
Right. I think stylistically,
beat the shit out of them after the match.
That's what I was trying to say. Stylistically, a roll up victory by Rob Van Dam or Bob Bradley on one of the Powers of Pain would have been bigger. And then to get the heat back for the Powers of Pain, like you say, decimate the Aerial Assault. So this way, I feel sympathy. I feel empathy towards them. But again, Aerial Assault, we're cheering for them because now they're going into the finals of the tag team tournament, banged and bruised and maybe even injured. So now I'm having more sympathy and I'm invested more into Aerial Assault. CTC Martin, this is why your company went bankrupt, because you wasn't focused because you were so focused on having the Warrior on your TV. So with that being said, a reflection, there's really nothing left to talk about. So I want to close on the NWC because of what it stood for Dave Meltzer, what it stood for PWI. And again, it lasted from 94 to 98 TW. So within its history, TW, the heavyweight champion was the suicidal, the homicidal, the genocidal Sabu. So this is 1995 TW. So Sabu, you can tell with like ECW, they don't do a lot of dates on the East Coast. So you could see how Sabu has to travel all across the country to various indie promotions. Like you said, he probably passed by the Detroit area, big city wrestling, whatever the case may be, and then goes from one extreme to the Midwest to go to the West Coast to do an NWC booking, and he's the heavyweight champion there. But as from my notes, Sabu got a lot more street cred being the inaugural heavyweight champion. And he's having wars with Terry Funk. He's having wars with Cactus Jack before Cactus Jack turns into Mankind and goes to WWE TW. So, for someone like Sabu, it dawned on the professor, indie Riffic or the indie cultist of the fans. I mean, hardcore fans, the tape traders. I understand why people put Sabu on a pedestal, especially for the 90s purposes. He's a 90s pillar for indie promotions. What say you, TW, about that assessment?
He changed wrestling around here because, like I said, you look at wrestling today, you watch AEW, you watch WWE, you watch whatever you want to watch. It's still the same formula that it's always been. Good guy, bad guy, lock up. Good guy shines, bad guy. No. Bad guy shines, bad guy shines, like two small spots. Then the third spot, the babyface does the same spots, but back to back without a break, and makes the bad guy powder. They get in, bad guy cuts off the baby, beats him up for 10 minutes, does a couple false comebacks, then does a false finish, and then the baby face goes over. Sabu would come out, and he would wrestle somebody, and I caught on to it, so I started telling everybody I wrestle. Hey, man, instead of calling spots like we always do, let's just tell each other spots that we want to do, and we'll do them in the ring and just call them like hit 2, miss the 3rd, hit 1, miss the 2nd, hit 3, miss the first one after that. And I did that because of Sabu, and his shit was so unethical compared to everything else. It was pinball. You're just watching him do it.
I think the word you're looking for is unorthodox.
Unorthodox. Yeah, I don't know why I said ethical, but unorthodox compared to everything else. And so you never knew what was coming. And I think people loved it. And then out of nowhere, because this is 94, 95 when I'm wrestling, Rico, our first 11 matches, they started in May of 94, and then we became Los Rudos in January of 95. And then we would do shows as Los Rudos. So that part of 94 leading up to this, Sabu shot like a rocket, man. Like right after that, that's when like you're just seeing him all the time with fucking ECW. You're seeing him, doing all these things. I would see him in the magazines all the time, and he was different. He wasn't. You could go up to him and talk to him, and he was cool. But he ain't coming up to you and talking to you. So he's introverted in that way. But like I'd ask him questions all the time, like, "Hey man, does that fucking hurt going through them tables?" Because remember how he'd miss on purpose and go through a table after the guy left? He would just put a table in the ring and moonsault through a table, and then he pulled up his pants and showed me his knee pad, and I'm like, "Oh, he wore them big ass volleyball knee pads," and you couldn't tell because he had the hammer pants on, so you couldn't tell how big his knee pads were.
But after all those years, he still had hip replacement and knee replacement surgery too. Yeah. So it is what it is on that.
He was a worker, man. He was a working man. That dude was working everywhere. And like I said, he was here all the time. I would see RVD sometimes, but not as often as Sabu. Taz would come in. Dreamer would be here a lot. Too Cold. But Sabu was the one who was constant.
He's the workhorse, and I would bet. Not that he would command maybe not Warrior money, but he would command maybe that Road Warrior Hawk kind of deal.
But not. I don't think back then yet.
If the magazines were doing what I think they were doing by giving Sabu all this kind of cred, all this,
his price definitely escalated over the year.
Yeah,
but I was going to say this earlier. He probably got the 250, 300 a shot.
Okay,
and then as he built himself up, and that's the thing. You put a belt on a guy. That guy's got leverage on you. Like, dude, I'll come in, but you got to give me 350. And then they'd give it to you. Because why wouldn't they? They wouldn't have put the belt on you if they didn't think it was drawn. And, by the way, I want to say this. Because when we're on those Facebook pages, and I get it. It looks like I'm pro WWE, anti AEW. I'm not. I will fucking criticize WWE when they need to be criticized, and I will praise AEW. But I want to talk about one person right now. Now that I've seen him for 3 weeks there, I still don't think if I was him, I would have done it, because I think there's something to be said.
Are we talking about Kopi?
We're talking about Kopi. I think I would have loved being one of only 2 guys that were career WWE guys, right? Never left, never came back. You can't say that about The Undertaker because he started in WCW. You really can't say it about Shawn Michaels because he started in AWA. However, Shawn stayed. When everyone else was leaving, Shawn stayed. Edge had the absolute ability to say, I started here, I ended here. I never went anywhere else. Sting could have had that, even though UWF got bought by WCW. But anyway, now that I've seen him there for 3 weeks, I finally get it. And Edge was an attraction in WWE. Like, he would come in every 3-4 months to help Ray versus Dominic, or, continue to feud with the Judgment Day, or have his one-off with Sheamus. I think for him to come back after his injury, for him to be there and only be that, he wanted more. So I don't think it's money. I keep seeing people write, he took that truckload of money. I think it's more than that. And now that you see him, they're Cody. He's on every show. I don't know if he did Dynamite or Damage because I don't what the fuck is it even called? Rampage. I don't know if he did that, but he's on every show.
Only Dynamite and Collision he's going to be on.
But he's on every show. He's the focal point. He's going to be their champion. I don't know how you got to have MJF lose it to a heel and then him win it from that guy to do it right. But he's the guy, and I think that's what he wanted to be. He wanted to be a player. He wanted to be in the mix. I also see people saying him and Ricky Starks got legit heat with each other now because of that, which, by the way, that's the first thing I saw when I saw him because he stumbled over his words. I don't think Ricky meant it to be personal, but I could definitely tell Edge took it that way, right? Like, fuck you, buddy. But that said, I'm still happy for him. I'm happy he got to come back. I hope it is a nice swan song for him. Same thing with Daniel Bryan. Same thing with Paige. I don't want any of those three to fucking find out why the WWE didn't clear them for so long. I don't know that that's the place I'd want to wrestle if I was Danielson. And actually, fuck that. The women are just as nuts and take crazy bumps and stuff like that. I hope none of those three.
It's the generation we live in, TW, for the wrestling fandom.
You know,
they all do it.
Say this. They banned all those head moves when Daniel Bryan got hurt. I still can't believe they're allowed A, to do the curb stomp, and B, that kick that Sami Zayn does in the corner. Those have concussion written all over them. And of all the other stuff they banned, when's the last time someone did a pile driver in WWE? I don't even think they do it anymore.
Unless the Undertaker is doing his tombstone, that's it.
Tombstone's much safer than a fucking pile driver.
But that's the only one they do. But
I just wanted to say, I don't think Edge. I'm going to say Edge. He could have called himself Edge. Yes, I'm going to tell him that. Edge. Okay. Anyway, I don't think he did it for the money. I think he wanted one last spotlight run, where
it's a drug. Think it's terrible. I said it here. It's a drug. The thrill is there. Yeah. It's the ultimate thrill drug.
Yep.
So, and he wanted to go out on his terms. 8 years was taken away from him, and he needs to catch up as much as he could. He's 50, so I think he's got maybe
51.
2 or 3.
He'll be 51 soon. He's older than me.
Okay, so but he's got maybe 2 or 3 years if he wants to really do this and hone in on this, so he can get the run that he deserves himself. But before we close, I want to go back to NWC because I want to again put a little spin on a what if. TW, I could see Los Rudos having a blood feud with Rob Van Dam and Bob Bradley, aerial assault. Would you agree or disagree?
How 100%. That's the type of. We used to wrestle Sean Casey and Steve Nixon. Same. Sean Casey, I think he was part of OVW for a while. He was at least part of not OVW. What the fuck is that's? What the fuck? What? Yeah, OVW. Is that Al Snow shit?
Yeah.
Sean Casey was part of the Les Thatcher version. Like, have you ever heard of Sean Casey?
I've heard of Scott Casey, not
him. That's funny because he was popping up on my Wikipedia at the bottom, a black and white photo before he was the jobber, Scott Casey. But anyway, those two would have been perfect because we were similar in size. We did similar moveset. I didn't do all that bending shit that RVD doesn't have skeleton. This dude is different. But yeah, it would have been phenomenal. The four of us would have had banga after banga after banga, and we would have had psychology, and our moves would have made sense. They would have been timed right. It would have been awesome. Just like I think we would have had good stuff with Public Enema. I think those would have been good matches. I don't know about the Pitbulls and the Eliminators. Those guys look like they fucking killed people, and I'd kill back. If I got hurt, I'd be fucking hurting you back. That's for sure.
So in essence, the best way for Los Rudos and Aerial Assault to have a blood feud, I would say, maybe you would agree with this, and then we'll close out Reflection Nights. They would win the inaugural tag team tournament, and would you attack them being crowned the champions, or maybe wait a week and then make your presence felt? How would the Los Rudos book themselves to get that shot?
Oh, fuck, we would have came in and stole the belts like we did the hubcap when we came around for MTW. Like, it's just, stereotype shit. We'd have came in there and just made life miserable for them, but never left them laying. Because remember, we're probably going to be the smaller guys, but you got to cower. And then eventually, that's when the blood feud comes in. We fucking hit them with a car or something like that and just, get deep with it. But absolutely the four of us would have been good. It would absolutely, I know it without a doubt. We would have had good shit with the Rock and Roll Express. I'm certain of that.
And with that being said, we close on this episodic episode number 176. We're getting closer to that elusive 200. So we did the national. What? Stop singing. I'm trying to close out the show. But anyway, we did 176, the National Wrestling Conference or Council, whatever you want to call it, owned by TC Martin, and they did it out of Las Vegas, Nevada. But with that being said, TW, before you give out those socials, you talked about the rivalries, and I got a rivalry, and I know Big Ray has suggested a rivalry, but again, I tell Reflectionites this: I think about episodes, I think about movies, I think about spotlights. I try to think maybe 2 or 3 weeks ahead. So I was thinking about this last week when we did our episode of What If, when we were prepping it. So I'm going to pull a curveball. Actually, you said one of the names in your soliloquy with Los Rudos and who you would have bangers with. I haven't talked about ECW in a while, Reflectionites, so it would behoove the professor, because I got to make myself happy here, that we're going to do a rivalries edition between the Public Enemy and you call them the Public Enema, but they are the Public Enemy, Rocco Rock and Johnny Grudge, against New Jack and Mustafa, the Gangsters. That's one of the I haven't done ECW in a while, Reflectionites. I want to make myself happy, so we're gonna do Greatest Rivalries Edition, the Public Enemy,
they're all
the Gangsters. Thank you for letting me know that. I know that, TW.
Both of the New Jacks are dead?
New Jacks. Both. I don't know if Mustafa is dead, but I wouldn't be shocked. But God damn it, TW. Do not remind me about this shit. I do not care. I just want to celebrate the rivalry edition. And we are going to do the Public Enema versus the Gangsters. So that's what we're going to do for next. What?
What the hell is a Public Enema anyway?
I forgot the movie.
Come on. It's the greatest black character actor in the history of movies.
I'm getting a break.
John Witherspoon.
Oh yeah. Which one?
He's the Black Will Ferrell, man. If those two guys are in movies, they're better.
Oh yeah, he did. It was Friday. He was like,
he's the dad in Friday. He's the neighbor in this movie.
Public Enema.
And he looks out the window because of the noise, and he goes,
"Oh, House Party, yeah,
House Party."
It was House Party. So again, that's what we're gonna do: the Public Enemy versus the Gangsters. So TW, that's what we're gonna do next week. So I'll get you some matches, and we're gonna celebrate these two tag teams because again, all four of them are dead in TW's list. But we're not celebrating that they're dead. We're gonna celebrate the blood feuds. I'm gonna bring out those matches for you. So TW, give out those socials so we can finally get out of here.
Oh, yeah. The Pro Wrestling Coalition Network sponsors us at PWC Network at Podbean.com. Also, Hameen Media Group can be found at Hameen Media Group at Podbean.com and at ChannelAttitude.com. Our show on the X, if you will, is at PW Reflection. I talked about our man Travis Volts, so he's at Nuts and Volts, VOELTZ PW.
Travis, why didn't you go to NWC? That you're not that far away from North Dakota, South Dakota to Vegas.
Yeah. He's making a comeback right now as we speak.
He should have done it, but neither here nor there.
95, 96. I don't think he's even in Lima yet. So yeah, he should have drove down. You can find Big Ray everywhere there's social media. He's at Big Ray Hernandez, and every Wednesday you can watch him at the Next Level podcast. That's live too, right? 11 a.m. Eastern time. He's live. You'll get a notification on Facebook. I get him and accidentally go into it and get out of there before he sees I'm there because it's an accident because I'm working. But
because he will actually he will give you the link so you can join the show. So he's waiting for that.
Yep. And then you can find me on Instagram and X at Tommy Wonder 19, or you can find me on X at the Tommy Wonder, which is also my TikTok. My Snapchat is #Wonder, Facebook.com/Tommy Wonder. And then you can find, that's Threads too, is at Tommy Wonder 19. And then Big Vito and Noel can be found at Big Vito brand.wixsite.com. That's WIXSITE, wixsite.com. And you can find them at patreon.com/thebigvitobrand. And every week you can get an early release of the reflection video at twitch.tv/thebigvitobrand. And watchwrestling.wtf is the site if you want to watch wrestling the way the professor's helping me watch it.
And that's probably the only place you're gonna actually watch the video, unless you want to go on Big Ray's X handle, because I know Tracker ain't gonna upload this shit unless it's gonna be a month later. But neither here nor there. But again,
he's too busy marking out for Hobbs.
No, he's too busy marking out for Pulp Fiction.
That and Hobbs. Stuff. That was same trip.
That too. But you can find me on my Twitter or Xer at PWSOPRF. That's PWSOPROF. And follow my brothers in arms from the PW Hustle, Billy Ray Valentine, and the Wednesday Locker Room on the Hami Media Group at podbean.com at Obi-Wan Yanomi. And of course, the man, the king of the reactions, 8-Track Brown at the number 8 TRAC Brown. And again, next week we're going to do the rivalries edition of the PWR, the Gangsters versus the Public Enema or the Public Enemy. And with that being said, I'm the Professor. That's Mr. Wonderful, WWE 80th own Tommy Wonder, who should have been at the NWC, but he forgot his, he didn't pick up the phone, goddammit. But neither here nor there. But it's Tommy Wonder saying good night, and we'll see you next week here at the PWR Podcast at the Hami Media Group at podbean.com. Peace. That was apropos.